Well, let's bring in three journalists now to look at where we are in the campaign, the final messages, and what we'll watch for in the final hours of the election race. And yep, that's just about where we are. Susan Delacourt is a columnist with the Toronto Star. Joël-Denis Bellavance is the parliamentary bureau chief for La Presse. And Adrienne Batra is the editor-in-chief of the Toronto Sun. It's good to see you all. Susan, let me start with you. What we're seeing as the campaign winds down now is, and really in evidence again today, is two leaders, Justin Trudeau and Erin O'Toole, appealing to voters to vote strategically. Justin Trudeau appealing to the Progressives, Erin O'Toole, without saying so, trying to win over People's Party of Canada voters in the 11th hour. Who do you think is most likely to be successful?
Oh, you know, in this election, it's not so much what the leaders themselves do, but it's what's done to them. So, you know, O'Toole probably thought he was having a not bad week until Jason Kenney ran into trouble in Alberta. Justin Trudeau, you know, he also seems to be plagued by fate. So I'm not sure at this stage, you know, smarter people than me have been saying that this campaign was decided about a week ago. And I'm not sure what these 11th hour appeals do. I think both of them are worried about getting out their vote and motivation. This is the unwanted election, could turn into the unwanted visit to the ballot box. And I think that's probably what both of them are trying to do right now.
Right. Adrienne, what are you hearing in the messaging from the leaders in the final hours of the campaign? What does it tell you about how they think the race is going?
Well, I think they see what we do and that it's just too close to call. But I would agree certainly with Susan that there have been, you know, external outside events. You know, a former British Prime Minister was once asked by a young man, he said, "What's the hardest part about your job?" And he said, "Events, young man, events." So, of course, the Alberta situation hurting O'Toole. And then, of course, Susan's colleagues at the Toronto Star coming out with that bombshell that one of the Liberal candidates had a sexual assault allegation against him. So they are plagued with the negative, whereas what they want to do, Peter, in the next 72 hours is portray a positive. And so it's tough to do that when you do have these dark clouds looming over. But regardless of that, with respect to this decision ostensibly being made, I think, in the last week, I would agree with that. I don't think people are really going to be switching as of Monday. The long lineups, which we are expecting, may rankle some ires and people may walk away. Turnout will be interesting to watch for sure. But as we all know, get out the vote is really what's going to matter for the ground game right now, is what all the parties are focused on. Yeah,
Joël-Denis, interesting. I think what we've seen, and it's not like we've never seen it before, but it seems to be really playing out in these final days. We don't hear much more, you know, platform talk anymore, and we don't even hear, you know, we hear reasons why you shouldn't be voting for the other people. I mean, and in really sort of in harsh tones. What are your thoughts on what we're seeing?
Well, I think Justin Trudeau is trying to, again, plead with progressive voters to rally behind the Liberal flag so that the Liberals at least have a minority government in power on Monday. Whereas Erin O'Toole, he is back to where he started, which is he wants to make this a referendum on Justin Trudeau. That's why he's saying that Justin Trudeau is guilty of calling an unnecessary election that will cost $600 million. And so the voters should punish Mr. Trudeau. And that, in a sense, I think is a way to appeal to the Parti Populaire du Canada, the People's Party of Canada, if I may say, indirectly. So if you want to send a real message to Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, you have to vote for the Conservative Party. But it is, as my colleague said, everything has been said. I think most people have made up their mind, and I'm not sure that many people will be changing their mind over the weekends, even though we've seen some foreign leaders trying to support either Mr. Trudeau in the names of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, or Bernie Sanders, again today, giving his support to Jagmeet Singh.
Right, and none of them candidates in the Canadian election. But Adrienne, let me come back to you here. No, because it leads me to Jason Kenney, and Susan touched on him. He's not a candidate in this election, but he might as well be for the all attention his actions are getting and his handling of the pandemic. What effect do you think, and it's still percolating in the campaign today, that Jason Kenney could have on the outcome of this campaign?
So I know that the Liberal supporters are don't want to hear this, but I don't think it's actually, frankly, going to have much, if any, effect at all. For many of the reasons that we've already discussed, I think people's decisions and minds are already made up. And outside of, even though Jason Kenney, he's been a cabinet minister under Harper, he's been around the political sphere and world for some time. A lot of people outside of the areas where this election is going to be decided, particularly the 905 in Ontario, they don't know who Jason Kenney is, and they're not focused on what is happening on a provincial level. They're worried about what's happening in their own backyard. So I think there were a handful of ridings in Alberta that the Liberals were looking at, the NDP is looking at picking up. Those might go in their direction. But I don't think it's going to have a significant impact on the overall outcome. Just like Legault ostensibly endorsing O'Toole had no impact, will have no impact.
Susan, how do you see it? Because I guess I'm wondering, one of the things it occurs to me, it seems to me, allows the Liberals to, for instance, is get back to where the campaign started, to reframe it around pandemic management and be able to point to, which Justin Trudeau's been doing, to point to Jason Kenney, to Scott Moe, and then loop in Erin O'Toole and say, look, as he said yesterday, leadership matters.
Yeah, I had a correspondence today from an advertising guy, sort of well-known in advertising. He called the ad the Liberals put out there, a Twitter ad showing O'Toole congratulating Kenney, as a devastating ad. One of those kind of ads that feeds into the mood. I'm kind of with Adrienne. I don't know how much people make a transfer in this, but I do take your point, and I think that there were two fundamental debates in this election or ballot. There are actually many ballot box questions. It was like a choose your own adventure tale. But there was the question of, is this on the pandemic or is this on life post-pandemic? And the Conservatives hoped with their platform and everything it was going to be about that. And this has all got us thinking about the pandemic again, as Adrienne says, and that's where the Liberals wanted this election to be.
Right. Joël-Denis, let me move to you here. We talked a little bit about Jason Kenney and Quebec native son Max Bernier. We touched on the PPC. He's the leader who's tapped into this vein of discontent in the country. Yes, vaccines, but maybe a lot of things. His party does seem to have some momentum in the polls we're seeing. What are you hearing about whether he can win his seat in Beauce? And tell me about that. Well,
the most informed opinion is that Maxime Bernier cannot win his seat. In fact, he's not going to be in Beauce the night of the election. He will be far away in Saskatoon because he can't have a rally in his Beauce riding with the people without masks. So being faithful to his beliefs that this is like a tyranny of the government, he is doing that in Saskatchewan where they allow people to gather without masks. So it's a remarkable journey for Mr. Bernier, who is now being far away from his riding, and he only went once a week there. And I'm told that he has no chance of winning back that riding because people are not very, very impressed with the way he has handled his behavior during this pandemic. Now, I'd like to go back quickly to one of the topics that we raised, the fact that many provincial issues were brought to the national conversation in this election. It's amazing. Like, we talk about Jason Kenney, but the involvement also of François Legault is unprecedented. 3 times he called for the Liberals not to be elected, for Quebecers not to support the Liberals in this election or the NDP or the Green Party. This is unprecedented. And this might have consequences afterwards on the National Union front. And one premier that was really, really absent from the scene is Doug Ford of Ontario, which is, not surprising.
Okay, we're going to run out of time, but I did want to, I'll throw it out there anyway. The one, we always call Jagmeet Singh the happy warrior, and he still largely is, but is anybody happier than François Blanchet? He just walks around with a big smile on his face most of the time. I think he likes the...
so often after the leaders' debates, I'm originally from out west, and I hear from my friends out west, they're like, we wish we could vote for this guy. He doesn't give a crap about anything else. He stands for Quebec. We don't agree with anything that he says, but they want to mark their ballot for him. So yeah, he walks away pretty relatively unscathed from most of those sort of tussles. But the key is, does that demand, who loves Quebec more, that tussle he was having with Justin Trudeau, does that translate into votes that the Bloc can take away from the Liberals?
Susan, I'll finish on you here, just with a bit of an aside. We've been at this long enough to remember when Gilles Duceppe used to travel the country, and a lot of people in other parts of the country. We would see a national polling about who's your favorite, who do you want for Prime Minister. Duceppe would show up just because he tapped into, he would tap into that vein. Go ahead.
I remember Lucien Bouchard. I traveled with him,
Yeah.
being a much beloved character too.
All right, so we're going to leave it at that. We're out of time. I didn't get to another quick discussion point about voter turnout and how some of the nastiness of the campaign might affect that, but that'll be a conversation for another time. Thank you all for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.